All right, so what I've done is I've gone down to the Home Improvement Center and I grabbed a piece of 1/4 inch, 3 foot long round stock to try to make this arc. Because I think what I really want to do is I'm going to cut this whole section out and run the round stock over to here somewhere and try to tack it into place. There's not a lot of it left, so I don't know if this is really going to work.
For 45 years, the Miller family and the dedicated staff at Autocrafters have been here helping you to restore your dream Ford. Thank you for your support. Here's to another 45 years of delivering parts for your Falcon, Fairlane, F100, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto.
What I'm going to do is just hand bend, because this is not, you know, high tensile strength steel. Just laying it over. This is where it gets a little tougher, right into that corner. What I'm going to try to do is lay it off in there. Okay, I'm going to get these other locking pliers in there. I'm trying to push this down into the very bottom of the channel, which is proving to be a little tougher than you might think. So what we've got is we've got a rounded arc that drops off. This is a very complex setup. Pushing down on it. Trying to get this over this lip. This is getting pretty funky. I'm going to want to mark this up for the position it's in. I'm going to cut it probably right about here, and I'm going to let this fly in the wind. And I'm going to probably have to chip off of the end of it to get it to sit in here where I want it to sit. And I may weld it in and then cut it and then use my 22 gauge to form over the top of it. Everything in this kind of stuff is subjective. There's 1,000 ways to do it. If you've got one of those thousands, let me know. What I'm trying to do is trying to get that to sit on that corner. I think what I'm going to do now is if that will stay where it's at, I'm going to whack it a few more times, and I may go in and put some pie cuts in with my Dremel tool on the bottom section of it down at this end so it'll drop that corner, and on the back section of it so it'll make that curve. Because we still need to drop, starting right about here, we need to drop down into this corner here. And this is not even the final set. This is actually moving out from where it needs to be. So probably an uppercut as well to make that moldable. This is pretty good to about right here where I made that last whack. And then we need to bottom cut it along here. So that end, put on that on the end of it. So I kind of got an idea where how the angle I need to cut, but the cuts need to be along that line. I've got extra stuff on the other end. If I mess this up and this doesn't work, I can go back. It's laying in pretty good until you get to right there. Nah, I'm gonna have to get my face shield so I don't eat anything while I'm doing this. And now that the heat's gonna travel up that steel, I'm gonna move to my glove. Piece of stainless, seeing if it'll go over that. Probably could use one or two more cuts over here to make that arc. Because as soon as I let go of the pressure here, it's gonna jump. All right, I've got this laying fairly flat out across that arc, but if you look at it from the top, you can see where I've marked a line where the original metal runs. This part of the arc right here is not deep enough. I need to add a little bit more depth going out this way in order to make this run work. And what I'm doing with that is I'm doing a pair of locking pliers to hold it in place. And then I'm trying to use a piece of my stainless tubing to arc that center a little bit better. I'm using that old stainless fuel line as an extension to give me a better lever. No more fun can be had than trying to work around stock. That's pretty darn good right there. The little cuts I made across the bottom help me angle this end down where it needs to be to get into that corner. This looks pretty good. I'm going to shorten it off here in a minute, probably about right there. I'll cut that off so that I can get up in there and work. But I've got to go inside, take the instrument panel out. I'm not going to cover that because this is a Falcon, and Falcons are completely different than Fairlanes. But this section right here will work on anything 1966 Falcon, Fairlane, Comet, all the way up through 1967. So 66 and 67, this repair will work. It'll work on other things too, but I'm just saying more specifically those cars. All right, here's what I am thinking. I'm going to take this piece and set it on the back side here and I am going to weld it in place. I need to put a little more arc in the middle of it right there. Hopefully that's not too much. Better. Need to probably bring that other end up a little bit. Okay, so I have my locking plier here. This is holding everything tight to the arc, to this bump in the metal here. So this is all nice and tight up against this. And I'm looking at this to try to see where it starts to, so to speak, fall apart on me. And the fall apart point is right about here. So this way over, we've got an issue with this rolling in deeper. Now I could probably go in and pull this out and get it to lay where I want it to by using it or doing it this way. Come in from the bottom here. And now you see what's going on is it's actually coming out too far right in there. So that whole section right there needs to be mucked with just a little bit in order to get a better arc for what we're doing here. Not real bad. I could probably go ahead and set this and work it and you'll never have a problem with it because you do have to remember that this is a glue-in windshield. So with it being a glue-in, there's going to be probably, an eighth of an inch of glue sealer, windshield sealer between the glass and what's going on right here. So this might actually would work just where it's at. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make my initial cut around this kerf here and kind of get this ready for me to do some work on it and maybe even possibly go ahead and get this welded in after I reset it. I'm going to have to clean it off because this does have galvanizing on it. So I don't want to try to weld through that galvanizing, so I'll probably kind of clean it up when I'm doing my cut. And note that these aren't super tight. I wanted to grind that just to make sure I don't have anything in here that's going to cause me a problem with it popping whenever I go in and do my final weld up on it. These spots right here, I'm going to have a real problem with it because that's some scaly looking metal, so I may have to go in and kind of work around those and grind them out after the fact and then either fill them with metal or fill them with weld. Or as Cam likes to call it, the hot metal glue gun. All right, I'm going to take this over to my sanding wheel in the other shop and I'm going to sand this down a little bit to give me a better welding surface so that we don't have any problems with working through that galvanizing. All right, so what I've got is I've got a welding blanket on the inside. You don't want to get anything on your wires and this stuff will burn right through that wire casing. So I've got the blanket in there to protect that. I've got everything clamped in. I'm only going to weld this back edge and I'm only going to tack it. I'm not going to put a lot of welds in there because what I want to try to do next is see what I can do about creating that arc here with the 22 gauge And I'm going to show you a way to do that using tape as a layout, so to speak. So I'm going to lay my tacks in. Hopefully these take well. Kind of like not knowing where to put your arms when you have a new girlfriend. Go ahead and get one right next to this clamp. I think that held. I'm going to look at them and see if any of them actually took. I'm trying to go real cold, not real cold, but colder on these welds just to make sure that we don't have a blow-through problem because of how light duty this metal is right now. I'll put a couple of more moves on this one right here. Yeah, let's see if we're going to have a problem here. Ah. All right, that's in there. Maybe not stupid tight, but it's in there. All right, I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and then I'm going to bring in some tape. All right, now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in and throw down some tape. And I am going to probably just go straight out across here. I can't say that any of this stuff I'm showing you is original. There's a couple of guys I follow on Instagram. One is, I believe, Side Street Customs. He's a guy in Texas, up around Kilgore, and he's a lot better welder than I am because he'll sit there and actually weld and not feel anything when he's getting inundated with sparks. I did that, I'd be a whining mess. He said the grinding sparks bother him a little bit. Got a cool little channel. You should go check it out on Instagram if you're an Instagrammer, which I have to be. Pull that down in there to make that corner. That's what I'm really wanting, is that corner. I'm not going to go all the way down in that bottom with this, but I am going to use that as a template on my sheet steel that I got from the Home Improvement Center. And like I said before, I'm using 22 gauge, mostly because it's just a lot easier to work. If you put good rust inhibitors on there and auto parts stores, that's a rust inhibitor paint from Rust-Oleum, that stuff works pretty darn well. The reason I'm cross taping this is because a lot of times this will want to pull up in a way that I don't want it to pull up when I'm taking it out of here. So cross taping is the best way to keep it all in one piece. All right, I'm going to pull my template up. That's where those art classes pay off. Now I may end up having to grind all that back to make that work on here, but that's our basic shape. I'm going to keep this for future reference. I want to make a cutout template for this and this area over here so that I can make this final setup on this for you this week. All this is for me to make a template so I can set it on my existing piece of metal to know kind of how I need to cut everything out. Kind of shortchanging this. I'm not doing this one as final as I did the other one. This is mostly for me to have a main cut to area. So what I want to do now, got voids here. Okay, I'm going to put a sealer line on the end of that. Going that way. And one down here doing the same thing, but a short. I'm going to go with that line right there. I'm going to lay. Hopefully I've got enough metal here. Okay. Now I'm going to cut this out with my utility knife, cut the tape out. And after I cut this template, we're going to basically be done for this week. I'm going to set it in, and I may try going ahead and starting to roll some of these edges after I cut everything out. I'm going to mark this up because my tape's starting to lift, and I don't want that to be the case. I'm going to make a mark line on here. I'll cut to the inside of that line. And I may cut this one a little taller out here.
Nice straight cuts. No rust to be seen. Wow. Except for there and there and there and there.
Yeah. That's going to be the next video, is finishing up the rest of this mess.
This stuff you can probably just weld right up, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to do that. We'll do the weld up on all of it next week.
Alright.
I'm just doing fitting today, so.
Nice. Well, I love you.
I love you too, buddy. He's going to the Air Force Academy, by the way. Just to check it out. I'm going back to work, though. I'm gonna go in and clean that up with my sander, and then I'll be back in here to check a fit. All right, I am right where I want to be, and I'm not gonna go any further because one of the things I'm gonna need in order to accomplish the rest of this is some magnets. And I'm gonna have a little bit more trim work to do down on this end of it. But now I see that this is gonna need to roll in some, like so. Like that. 22 gauge, holy moly. And I'm gonna need to open up that gap just a little bit to get better adhesion in here. What I'll do is I'll go and tack in here, put a tack on that corner next week, and then I'll start tacking it in and setting it. And I've got to figure out whether I want to cut this. But there's a couple things I'm going to need in order to do all this stuff. I've got to have some more high strength magnets because mine are basically worn out. I also need a couple things for the MIG welder. I am out of argon, so I've got to go get some argon. These are the problems you run into when you're a little bitty dude with a little bitty bottle. That sounded really bad. So that's our show for this week. Do me a favor, be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. Or right back here next week. That'd be great, because there's going to be more of this. And I'm going to show you how we're going to fix all this and make this look like this curve theoretically. Y'all come back. You hear?